Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Happy 4th of July weekend, everyone. I hope you all do it upright. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Just some boxing commentary. Look, I'm aware of the fact that mainstream media wants access to promoters and to fighters. So mainstream media doesn't want to jeopardize that access by being upfront and by saying things that might upset a few people in the industry. Boxing is not as big as you think. There aren't as many boxing managers as you think. There certainly aren't as many world-class promoters, right? But let's be real here. You know, if you're looking for a boxing website that tries to cater to fighters and to be part of their ad campaigns, you're in the wrong place. This is not that site, right? If a fighter, let's use names, Saul Alvarez, in furtherance of his marketing plan, wants to tell us that he's not fighting Gennady Golovkin for the next year, right? Save your breath. Right? I'm interested in the fights you're actually going to have in the next year, not the fights you're not going to have. Let's go one step further. You know, my attention span isn't that great. I'm guessing a lot of other fight fans' attention spans aren't that great. Right? Just like I'm not interested in what LeBron is going to do after next season. Right? I'm really not interested in what a fighter is going to do or who he's going to fight after the next 12 months. In other words, if you're not going to hop in the ring against an opponent within the next 12 months, I don't need to hear about it. Right? I really don't. You know, to me, it's really just marketing for a fighter to say, hey, look, I'm not dodging guys. I'm going to fight them more than a year from now, right? I don't even know why the boxing press is reporting that statement, right? I don't begrudge boxers for, you know, wanting easy fights, for wanting fights that'll help feed their families, for not taking the toughest opponents after they win a title, right? Because first, they want to capitalize on the title. They don't want to lose it right away, and they want to pay some bills, right? Boxing's expensive. You're carrying a lot of people, right? Sparring partners, trainer, boxing manager, promoter, etc. I get it, right? But please, put a limit on the marketing, right? Don't tell me, you know what, in 2018 or late 2017, I'm going to hop in the ring with Look, enough, right? You know, my plate's already full dealing with fighters who are actually having fights during that period of time. Let me also offer this. If you're a fighter and you make a decision to fight for a title in a weight class, then guess what? Don't later tell us that you don't belong in the weight class. Right? We, the fans, are following the fighter's leads. Right? When a fighter decides to fight for the middleweight championship, folks, there are things that come along with that decision. If that fighter wins the middleweight championship, then we're going to start asking questions like, hey, you know, what other middleweights are you going to fight? Please don't insult us by saying, hey, even though I walk around at super middleweight, I'm not really a middleweight. Even though I took up your time by fighting for the middleweight championship, I'm going to insist that my opponents fight at catch weights outside of the division. Right? This catch weight thing has gotten to be ridiculous. Right? Well, now it's getting worse. Now you have guys fighting for titles claiming that they don't belong in the weight class of the title they're fighting for. This is downright ridiculous. right? What I hope happens here is I hope Oscar De La Hoya, let's name names, as I've said, I hope Oscar De La Hoya and his client Saul Alvarez think about more than their marketing and actually start thinking about the sport in general, right? Saul, you're your own man. If you don't want to fight Gennady Golovkin, at least not for the next 12 months, just come out and say, hey, look, that's the way it is. I'm not fighting him. Don't string us along with this Microsoft marketing plan where you hint at upgrades down the road, right? To kill the current market, to keep all eyes on you, to have people saying, hey, I'm not going to focus on who Golovkin's going to fight next because I know in more than a year he's going to fight Canelo. Don't do that to us. Don't do that to Golovkin, right? And just so people know where I stand. And I know Canelo has been dynamite, right? He's done better than certainly I have expected. I thought, for example, Cotto was going to beat him in their recent fight. We'll overlook the fact that after I saw the fight, I thought Cotto won the fight. We'll overlook that, right? Canelo certainly has done a lot in his career. He's having a Hall of Fame career right now. I'll be taking Golovkin when that fight takes place. Let's talk about a fighter who is actually fighting within the next 12 months against quality opponents. In fact, let me applaud this guy for taking on a very tough opponent, right? Sergey Kovalev. Right now, I can't say this about everyone at light heavy. I can't. I can say this about this guy. He's taking on a credible opponent here, right? Ike Chilemba. Let me say this. My pick in this fight is the over. I feel that Kovalev is a bit overvalued based on his recent wins over Jean Pascal. Right? Now, Chilemba is world class, right? In boxing, you can be world class without having a title, right? Chilemba is a bona fide contender. This isn't a tune-up fight geared to have us, the boxing public, watch a favored fighter run roughshod over an overmatched opponent, and then we say to ourselves, oh, I can't wait now for the Kovalev-Andre Ward fight. Now, this is different. Here, Kovalev is fighting a guy who has fought Tony Bellew twice and who was not stopped in either fight. Keep in mind, Chilemba has never been stopped, and he's fought many tough fighters. In his last fight against Alida Alvarez, I know I'm terrible on names, right? He looked good the second half of the fight. More importantly, for our purposes, since we're taking the over in this fight, he knew how to survive the first half of the fight. Now, Chilemba is mentally tough. While this fight will be in Kovalev's backyard, and we're talking about where Kovalev has been fighting of late, right? Where Kovalev draws crowds. While this fight will be in Kovalev's backyard, fans should know that Chilemba fought Bellew, the new cruiserweight champion, right? The champion one weight class up, right? Chilemba fought Bellew to a draw in Bellew's backyard when Bellew was a light heavyweight, right? He also fought Alvarez in his backyard. Chilemba is that fighter who can operate on foreign soil. In other words, his game travels, right? Also importantly, Chilemba has survival skills, right? Now, Kovalev, who is an offensive juggernaut, does not throw as many punches as you think. You know, in general, he throws less than 60 punches around. Nor is he as accurate as you think. according to CompuBox, did you know that senior citizen Bernard Hopkins, future Hall of Famer, but nonetheless a senior citizen Bernard Hopkins was more accurate than Kovalev in their fight? Let's go further here. I think Kovalev wins. Boxing's a perception game. Kovalev is going to be heavily favored, right? Kovalev is going to be the hometown fighter. I believe they're fighting in Canada. He has the bigger punch, which, whether it knocks out the other guy or not, impresses the judges more, right? Judges are going to hear a bigger sound when Kovalev lands than when Chilemba lands, right? But let me say this. Not only do I think this fight is going over, but I'm going to throw some money in the wind here that I don't expect to get back. As I've said, I expect Kovalev to win. That's not how I'm betting it, right? Betting is different than your expectation, right? I expect Kovalev to win, but I'm taking the over, and because I've seen odds on this fight as high as 16 to 1 on the Ike Chilemba side, even though I expect to lose it, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on Chilemba to win the fight at 16 to 1, right? In my opinion, if these two fought 17 times, I'd expect Chilemba to win more than once, right? $1 would get you back 16 in profit. To me, that's an outsized enough risk reward for me to actually sprinkle some money on the fighter I think is going to lose this. So let's separate out this video. My primary bet here is the over. I want to be clear on that. My primary bet is the over in the Kovalev-Chilemba fight. If I had a gun to my head and I was asked to make one bet, that's the bet I would make, right? I expect Kovalev to win the fight, but my secondary bet here, because I believe the fight's mispriced, right? To me, the outcome is always in doubt. What you're doing is playing the odds. I believe the casino's putting out the wrong odds on this fight, because I believe Ike Chilemba is a world-class contender. He's a real litmus test who's been in the ring with, you know, some of the very best, right? As I said, Bellew has a belt. Bellew fought him twice, right? He's been in the ring. He's been on the road against world-class opposition, right? The UK, Canada. He's already been there. Keep in mind, Chilemba's not from the UK or Canada. We're talking about a global fighter. I think the idea of a guy like this getting 16 to 1 odds is just too tempting for me to pass up. So, my main bet's the over. My secondary bet is Chilemba to win at 16 to 1 odds. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't take Chilemba if this fight were even money. But here the casino is just giving me too much. I'm going to try to structure the bet where if it goes over, I net a profit. Right? I net a profit if it goes over. Whatever happens on the minor, Chilemba to win at 16 to 1 odds side of the play. Okay, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I know Kovalev is viewed as the big bad wolf, right? He personally did better, in my opinion, against Jean Pascal in the rematch than I thought he would. He really did look like he had Pascal outgunned. No question about it. But when I look at Kovalev, I see a guy who had problems in some fights, right? I see a guy who, when he upped the level of his opposition, couldn't stop, came close to stopping, but couldn't stop Bernard Hopkins, right? A guy with some defensive skills, right? Couldn't stop him. right? I've seen a guy who's had problems in other fights, right? He's on the deck against Blake Caparello, right? I see a guy who, against Jean Pascal, again, went a few rounds. Neither Pascal fight, as good as Kovalev looked, ended in the first 3 rounds. Right? So Kovalev, to me, Big Bad Wolf, might still be a bit overrated by the public, don't you think? Right? As I said, Hopkins went the distance against him. Right? Doesn't spend an inordinate amount of time in that fight hugging him either. Right? As I said too, in terms of accuracy, I know Kovalev is from the school of thought that if you have a hand up, he's going to do things like hit your elbow deliberately. Right? CompuBox doesn't fully appreciate that kind of work. Right? CompuBox will say, hey, that punch didn't land, when the goal of the punch is to have your elbow so sore that you start to drop it. Guess what? You drop an elbow, your face is unprotected. Right? Suddenly, Kovalev is raining shots in. I'll agree too, Kovalev is two-handed. But what I've also seen in Kovalev films is that there are times where he can be countered. Right? There are times when he can be hit. There are times when he has gotten hit, and hit hard. Right? If he fights a defensively blessed Ike Chilemba, if Chilemba is able to figure out how to counter him, this fight might be a lot more competitive than the current odds suggest it will be. As it is, I'm expecting this fight to go over. Right? Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.